Hello, everybody, and welcome to the presentation about planning, which I heard is one of District 71's favorite topics. By the way, Elizabeth, thank you very much for the brilliant introduction. I wish I could have you as an introducer before every single presentation or training I'm going to deliver ever in my life. It was a quiet Saturday morning in year 2013. And I was really feeling chilled and relaxed because it was a long and slow Saturday morning and I was at home and I wasn't rushing anywhere because I was scheduled to visit an area conference in the afternoon after 1 p.m. There was something happening before 1 p.m., but I was not particularly interested. But what happened, it's about 11 a.m. So still more than 1 hour before I was supposed to leave for that conference, as I see my phone is ringing with a number that I have not seen before. So I pick it up and I hear a familiar voice that's telling me, "Hey, Lucas, are you already on the way?" I say, "No, you're calling from the area conference." "Yeah, we're calling from the area conference. Look, please, can you get here in 30 minutes? I said, if I really rush, I will be able to make it in 30 minutes. Great, because you know what? We need 20 judging forms for humorous contests, and we need 20 judging forms for table topics. Nobody printed them, and now we have a contest coming up, and we have nobody to write, or we have, we do not have the forms so the judges can write into them." I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Okay, I'm gonna come." So along the way, I quickly grabbed the PDFs, uploaded them on my flash drive because I didn't have a printer at home. On my rushed way to the area conference, I had to drop by in a copy shop, print out those forms. And when I arrived to the place of the area conference, which was in the center of Prague, I found the venue. The address was right, but when I came there, the door was closed and there was nobody to handle the door. So nobody could open the door for me. I knocked, I waited, I knocked, I waited. So then I picked up the phone again. Oh, and the funniest thing, there were two other people who wanted to attend that area conference who came maybe 5 minutes before me, and still they also could not come in. So I picked up the phone again and I called the organizers and they tell me, "Yeah, so we changed our mind and we just decided we're going to go for lunch earlier. We will be back in 45 minutes. Now, this was a very interesting experience, and you might be asking yourself this question: what went wrong? And the answer, as you probably know, because it's the theme of this training, it was planning. It was probably the worst planned conference I ever attended during my 11 years in Toastmasters. And the good thing about it is it was also an experience because it showed me some things that I should absolutely avoid in any conference that I will be organizing in the future. You already heard Elizabeth already introduced me really nicely in the introduction, but I just should mention a couple of points that why it might be relevant for you to hear what is it that I'm going to share with you in the following 40 or 45 minutes. I'm 11 years in Toastmasters. I attended 20 or 21, I'm not 100% sure, 20 or 21 district conferences during the time. Now, for those of you who are saying, "Oh, but there's just one district conference happening every year," I usually attended more than one district conference, more than one district's conference. I usually attended, more than one district. And also back in the good old days, there were actually 2 district conferences happening in each district during that year, which exposed me to quite, from the participants' perspective, from some really good and some not really so good planning. 5 or possibly more conferences I organized also myself. Now I'm speaking about all the levels together, from area, division, and district conference. One conference I oversaw as a program quality director, which Elizabeth can tell you a lot about. And I also organized the only one corporate summit. That's an event when we invited representatives from corporations to promote Toastmasters, that about 13 corporations attended. and it really spread the growth of Toastmasters in Prague in year 20. The summit was in 2015, and the big growth happened in the years after. And on top of all this Toastmasters experience, I regularly organize parties at my place. Now, if you say, oh, these are much smaller events, I can tell you parties in my place can get wilder in some aspects. So it definitely provides me with some decent experience with planning. And what happens when something with the planning does not go so well? Well, then things start falling apart. And it's just really better to pay some extra attention to planning upfront. My intent with this training is I'm not going to go through let's say the classic Toastmasters materials. There is plenty, and maybe in one of the questions that I will ask during the training, you will have an opportunity to share what planning tools Toastmasters based, which one you have experience with. Okay, but I thought that you have many other opportunities to learn about those. However, in case you will have any specific question to any of the tools that you're using for planning, feel free to ask, and I can share my perspective, but also I know that many of you have a lot of experience already. So possibly we can use this training so that you can also maybe share your own experience with tools such as Club Success Plan and District Success Plan and Moments of Truth and many, many others that are available. Saying which, I want to highlight whatever is it that you want to plan. There is a manual for that. So probably if you need to plan an event, or if you need to plan your club's success, if you need to plan reaching a specific target, let's say getting 10 new members in 3 months, there is a manual for that. So probably you will also find it on Google. The purpose of what I want to achieve with this training is to share some extra perspective and also create maybe a forum for exchanging ideas and for mutual enrichment amongst you, so that you get to know who are the other people in District 71 who are interested in learning about planning. Last thing, in terms of logistics, well, when I'm presenting and I do not have the chat window open, when I'm specifically not asking for people to type in the chat, I do not read the chat. And so whenever you have a question, feel free to unmute and say it right away, okay? It's not that crazy amount of people in the call today. I don't really mind being interrupted from time to time. Whenever you have a question, ask away. Okay, is it clear? Can you give me virtual or video thumbs up? All clear? Great. Okay, so for those of you who are really active on social media or who are in the know about what's the newest and coolest thing, maybe you heard about ChatGPT. If you're not, that's fine. Well, I recommend you giving it a try. It's a tool using artificial intelligence that you can basically type a question into a chat window and it will generate an answer for you. This training is not going to be about that, but the idea is you can type any question such as create a plan for 2 months conference for a team of 3 people and assign tasks to these 3 people. And this tool is going to generate that for you. Now, if you want to play with the tool, you definitely can. I'm not going to use it in this training, but for the interaction, we are going to use an alternative, which I call Toastmasters D71 GPT. Okay. So what I'm going to do to make this training a little bit interactive and to give everybody a chance to share their practice from time to time, I will ask a question and I will ask everybody to provide the answer in the chat window. And the first chat request, the first request for your active participation is coming right now. You're curious about what is the next question? Okay. Now, we want to speak about planning, and I would like this to be as practical as possible. So what I would like to ask you, and please type in the chat and hit enter, what Toastmasters goals are big enough that you need proper planning for them? Some things are small, so they just happen right away. What Toastmasters goals are big enough that you need proper planning for them? Please share in the chat. All That might be. Everything needs planning. Okay. There we go. District conference, that's really big. DCP, achieving club success level. Contests, speech contests, achieving distinguished club status, area contest, excellent. What else? Anything else? Achieving DCP, club success plan, division contests. Great. Now, while I agree that in theory, you could say everything requires planning. The thing is, it'd be hard if we were to create a sophisticated plan for everything. So some things we just do intuitively. We just know what is it we need to do right away. And for something, we want to spend some extra time for analyzing it. And this might be some of the bigger things that you mentioned: contests, events, achieving your club success, or, for example, when your club is specifically struggling with the number of members and you just want to drive getting a specific amount of members by a specific date, which can be possibly connected with achieving the distinguished club program recognition. I would like to show you an example of a planning technique on the example of organizing a small event. Why I use this as an example is simple. Why I think an event is a better example for planning compared to, for example, achieving a distinguished level of distinguished club recognition is because when you have a set date for an event, it just has to happen. Compared to, and I can tell you, I have a lot of experience from club as well as district level roles, things like the club success plan and district success plan, there's always a list of actions, but for a long time, these can somehow easily be postponed. But if we agree that, what's now January, that on March 15th, you are going to do a conference, well, then there simply are some things that need to happen before March 15th, or there's not going to be a conference, or it's going to be as confusing and chaotic as the conference I told you about in the very beginning of this presentation. Okay, so another chat request for you, ladies and gentlemen, from District 71. Please give me a proposal. How would you go about the following planning session? Imagine that you have 6 people on the team, including yourself. You're in the same room. It can be a Zoom room, but if you're meeting in person, you can, imagine the way how you are really meeting with your Toastmaster colleagues these days. You have 6 people in the room. Everyone has some ideas. What would you suggest how to effectively create a plan while including everybody's ideas? So let me repeat. Imagine you have 6 people on the team. Everyone has some ideas. How would you create a plan including everyone's input? You have a time to think about it. You can maybe write in 3, 4, 5 steps. Okay, so you can take a little time to write it down. I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about it, and after that, I will request you to press enter and share your different approaches in the chat. Is it clear? Anybody needs more clarification? I'm assuming it's clear. In case anybody will need more explanation, let me know. I'll give you 1 minute from now, and then I'm going to ask you to submit your responses. Cool, very cool. Okay, I can see some good stuff coming in. Brainstorming session, brainstorming task, take notes, everybody's ideas, agree priorities. I love the idea of cups of tea and biscuit. The past president Balraj Arunasalam always said, food always works. I'm a big proponent of the food approach and biscuits. Listing ideas, using sticky notes, and find a specific mechanic how to incorporate everybody's ideas. Excellent. Well, I can see you have quite a good idea. In the next couple of minutes, I wanted to show you something that I do for my colleagues in MSD as a facilitator. It's a very specific technique. it's a small workshop or a big exercise, whichever way you prefer to call it, how I, with my colleagues, how I organize a session where every single person has an equal opportunity to contribute ideas, and then the best ideas are selected. It's specifically focused on planning. And it's really, really good. When I learned about this, I thought like, wow, it's amazing. How come I haven't thought about it before? I'm not saying it's crazy complicated. It's just really cool, and I haven't thought about it before. The exercise, and by the way, I'm going to share with you these steps. I'm going to share that with Elizabeth in writing, so Elizabeth will be able to share with everybody. It's called simply Planning Workshop. And these are the questions that you can answer with organizing this little planning workshop. It's something that you can organize both in person as well as remotely when you are using the appropriate tools. And it's going to answer the following questions. Number one, the first question you need to answer, and many of you, in fact, shared it in the chat. What are the tasks? We want to organize a small event. What are all the things that we need to do for that event to be successful? Number two, what are all the things we need to do? Okay, so these are like some things that need to happen. In order for those things to happen, what is that we need to do? Number three, when do these things need to happen? Because some things possibly need to happen before others. For example, when we're doing an event, it's likely that we would prefer to have the venue booked early on, whereas finding how we are going to get the snacks can be possibly postponed for later, even though it might still be beneficial to get it early on as well. But venue is more important in that matter. And the last thing, when do these things need to happen? We also need to decide who is going to do these tasks. Now, when you have all these questions answered, feel practically ready to start executing. So let's have a look specifically how to do that. And I believe Elizabeth wrote in the chat that we might be using Post-it, and Elizabeth, you were right. We actually will. This is how it's going to look like. There are some people in this call who attended a nice event in Dubai. So I, in fact, themed just this example. It's a small team building in Dubai, but please take it only as an example. I put there my name of my two colleagues. This how it can be, how you can do it practically. So number one, this you can do on a whiteboard or a flip chart. On a virtual whiteboard, you just give everybody a space for their ideas, and then you're going to set a definite amount of steps that you will ask everybody to fill. Now, this is for illustration, okay? So I give everybody only 6 steps. Probably organizing any event is going to be more complicated than that. Please take it as a simplified illustration. Also, I'm using only 3 people here as an example instead of 6. What you want to highlight is, or you maybe want to tell people how they should think about the writing down these activities. Now, each single person from this group is doing this on their own. Okay, so they're not showing everybody as they're writing these tasks down. They're not introducing it to them, but everybody does this on their own. So some examples of these tasks. Number 1, start with the first one. It's good to know what is the very first thing that you need to do. For example, estimate and request budget, right? Maybe you need to have it covered by the district budget. So you want to, how much is that team building going to cost and how much money or and to request that money. The next step, you'll ask everybody to write down the last step. What is the thing that needs to happen very last before that team building can happen? Let's say arrange transport to the hotel. And then you ask everybody to fill up all the things that need to happen in between. Now, as I said, you're going to give everybody a specified amount of steps that you ask them to fill out. And how this is beneficial, different people have a default tendency to go to a different level of detail when they are thinking about planning. So while somebody might be thinking about big 5 chunks, somebody else might be thinking about planning the very same event, to go in 30 little steps. If you tell everybody, okay, I want you to think about 6 main steps or 10 main steps, that will push everybody to go to a similar level of detail. All right, now let's imagine that everybody fills that, okay? You got these, maybe I filled those 6, Claudia also filled her 6, Ali also filled his 6. Oh, great, so everybody put there something. How can you decide without arguing whose is better? How can we decide? Here, I'm going to briefly introduce you to a collaboration technique called multi-layered voting. We're going to vote on the winners first on the level of the whole process, and second on the level of individual tasks. For example, let's say that I believe that Ali's process was the best. Claudia believes that her process was the best, and Ali believes that his process was also the best. Nobody voted for me. But hey, it's about what is the best idea, right? It's not about who wins. So if we decide that, well, then we take Ali's process is going to be the one that we're going to use as a base. Or not. Or maybe in your team of 6 people, maybe you are the decision maker and you might give the team a chance to give everybody a vote, but ultimately you decide that, but in the end, I'm going to decide anyway how we're going to do it. So let's imagine here, I just decided if I compare Claudia and Ali, well, actually, Claudia is better. So I gave her the final vote. Well then, great. So we're using the set of tasks Claudia wrote down, and this is going to be our base process. Now, that doesn't mean that there was no merit in any of the tasks that either me or Ali wrote down, because clearly Claudia couldn't have written down everything in the perfect way. What then? Well, in that case, the decision maker, which is me in this case, I can mark items in the other lines from the other people and then say, actually, Claudia forgot create the agenda. What I have there, so I mark create the agenda, and we're going to incorporate it into the main process we are using. Let me recap just to make sure that it is clear to follow, okay? So we got here 3 lines. Imagine each of them have some tasks written on them. Ali got 1 vote, Claudia got 1 vote, Ali got a 2nd vote. But ultimately, I said, look, Ali, good idea, but we're going to use Claudia's process. And because Claudia missed the item, create the agenda, I said, okay, to create the agenda, we need to add this to the process that we're going to be using. Then it's going to look like this. Of course, you can do it for other items. If other people, you can enrich Claudia's process by how many items you want. This part, then you have the task flow. So as we said, we want to have the list of tasks in order in which they need to happen. This is what we got here. I think this is a good moment to pause, because my intent is to enable you to try this out if you'll feel like it the next time that you'll have an opportunity. So if you think about, okay, how can I make this happen? How can you make this happen? Do you have any questions that you will need to have clarified before you will be ready to make this happen, before you'll be able to use this technique for planning? Any questions?
Lucas, who do you see doing this? Forget DLT, because obviously DLT should be doing some of this, but at club level, is it the club officers you see perhaps getting together and doing this? Is that how you see that working at the club level?
This is not necessarily linked to anybody's current role in the club or in the district, even though possibly it could be. But for example, let's say we gathered a team, to give the simplest of examples, we need to organize an area conference. Yeah. So then this would be designated team. Maybe it would be area director running the show, or maybe area director nominated somebody else as the conference chair. So then the team is going to be the conference chair and whoever is helping out running that event. Maybe for area conference, it's not even going to be 6 people together. Maybe in that case, it's going to be only 3. But the same if a club, for example, decides, all right, so we are going to do we're going to go for the membership campaign. And we even want to go harder at it than the membership campaign call. So we just want to get 10, not 5, but 10 new members for February and March. Good. So what is it we need to do to make it happen? What is it we need to do to get 10 new members in a course of 2 months? So the goal is clear. And as soon as you have a clear goal, you can think about, all right, so what are the tasks? What are the things that we need to do to actually achieve that? Right. And in that case, the task would be different examples. It would be introduce membership campaign to the members, think about incentives, create posts for social media, and so on and so on. Elizabeth, did it answer your question? Okay. And anybody else, any more questions? Feel free to ask right away. As I said, do not hesitate to interrupt me. Okay. The next thing that's important to do is to mark the dates, right? Because there are some things that possibly do not have a specific due date, but some things are. So you want to mark everything that needs to be done by a specific date. Maybe you know that, well, this is team building in Dubai, to book the flight tickets, you need to do it before a specific date. For example, if you want to book the venue before a specific date. Speaking of area conference, probably you want to have some time between announcing the date and the venue of the area conference and the conference itself so that everybody can adjust their calendars, and so on and so on. So now we have a list of tasks, we have the due dates. Now a key question, who is going to do it? Any ideas? I'm sure that most of you have experience with something like that. So you have a team of volunteers, right? The people that are not paid for it. Nobody can tell them you need to do this. You have a list of tasks. How do you arrange that every single task has an owner? How do you arrange that there's a person's name written next to each task? Any ideas? Feel free to share either in the chat or you can unmute and you can speak. Asking for volunteers. Great. So you have a list of tasks. You can ask, okay, who wants to do this, or who wants to do what? Great. Linking it to their skills and possibly areas of development. I heard, John, that you were interested in improving your public relations skills, or I heard that you were interested in improving your social media presence. Well, we need help with creating posts in Canva. So maybe this could be something for you. Volunteers, matching the skills. Perfect. All of these work. Good. So there's no need to be sad. What I propose is to do it in 2 rounds. And now if we want to get into the nitty-gritty, when we speak about post-its, you can get smaller round post-its and write people's initials on them. And you can give in the first round, I ask everybody, okay, if there's tasks that you want to do, put a sticky with your initials on that post-it. So you'll finish with something that will look like this. Okay, it's for Lucas Leibich, Ali Parande, and Claudia Villareo. Now, in this stage, when you ask for volunteers, it might still happen that there will be some tasks that nobody volunteered for. This is a tricky situation. Any idea how to work with that. What happens if there are some tasks that nobody wants to do? Agree. You can go with another round. You can ask people again. All right, we have no volunteers for this task. Who want to do it? Here's a little trick, a little cheat, perhaps. And that is, in the beginning of the planning meeting, you will benefit from deciding and agreeing who will be the decision maker and who will be the person with the authority to make the decision when there will be some things that will remain undecided. It's important that everybody agrees to this beforehand, because then if there's going to be a bunch of tasks unassigned, then if I am the decision maker, I can say, okay, Ali, I can see that nobody is creating the agenda. Please, could you do it? Because if the team agreed beforehand that I will have the authority to resolve all the undecided things, it gives me better opportunity to do exactly that. So then now I'm not saying this is working 100%, right? Still, Ali can tell me, Lucas, creating the agenda, I promise I will just never ever gonna do this. But I will simply increase my chances if I ask the team to approve of me deciding things that are undecided, if I ask them beforehand, not in the moment when it needs to happen. And when you've done that, mission accomplished, because what you accomplished, you have lists of tasks. Now, the thing I love about this, you used everybody's knowledge. Nobody was sitting quietly in the room, only listening how everybody talks to each other. Everybody had a chance to write down how they imagine this could be done step by step. And you picked the one that most people thought were the best, or the decision maker thought were the best. And you were able to incorporate the good stuff from the process that was not selected. You set the timeline and you assign the task. This is a really, really simple and a straightforward way how to create a plan, for example, for an event. Now, for an area conference, of course, this would be much, much simpler than for a district conference, for example. But the mechanics and the principles would be exactly the same. Exactly the same. Okay. I will pause here again to see if there are any questions to the second part, how we described it. If there were any questions to assigning the tasks and setting the timeline, or anything that we covered so far. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I feel we are ready for the recap of this part of doing the planning workshop. And after that, we'll have a quick look at the tools, okay? So planning workshop, you want to do when you're asking yourself the following questions. What are the tasks? What are all the things we need to do? When do these things need to happen? And who is going to do these tasks? It is a tool that allows you to use everybody's brain power, everybody's experience, and yet in a simple and straightforward way, choose the decision that will suit you most. How to do it? Quick recap. Everybody has a chance to list the task from the beginning to the end in a number of steps that you're going to specify beforehand. Then you're going to pick whose list of tasks you're going to use, and you're going to enrich it, and you're going to split the tasks. So that was a planning workshop. It's a really, really effective tool or workshop or exercise that you can use for planning with your team anytime. As I said, to catch it from a presentation like this might be a little bit challenging, but I will provide Elizabeth with a material that you'll be able to use for reference anytime you decide. Elizabeth also asked me to cover a little bit about the tools for planning. And now know that this is a topic on which we could spend hours and hours discussing. To be honest, even between me and Elizabeth, we did not agree on what are the tools that we like to use. And so I'm going to introduce to you some tools that you might not be familiar with. And then Elizabeth, maybe if she likes, she's going to introduce something that she likes using. I have two that really work well for me. The one that I use since ever is Trello. Now, what you can see here is my personal board. I think the small round icon, you probably cannot see it, but this is only my photo. So this is a snapshot of a board that is only my personal. So I'm not using this one for collaboration. But you have a list of tasks, you have a simple Kanban board, and you can assign people's names to each of the tasks. So after you finish the planning, we did just in the step before, remember, so we had a list of tasks, so we had dates at the tasks, and we assigned person to these tasks, to each of the tasks. The next thing, you can just simply transcribe all of these to a Trello board, and this tool is going to track, it's going to track the planning for you. Another one, the one that I started using more recently, it's a tool called Notion. It's a tool mainly used for, at least I use it mainly for storing and organizing my notes. But the reason why I also use it for planning now, maybe even more than Trello, is I simply have Notion open all the time. And the key for a planning tool to be useful is it needs to be used often, but by a significant amount of people on the team. Now, after 11 years in Toastmasters, I gave up on the wish that when I'm organizing an event and I have, let's say, 6 people on the team, each of these 6 is going to check the planning tool every day. It just doesn't happen. But if I have 6 people on the team, I would hope to have at least 3 of these 6 people using that tool actively. And I might even adjust the tool that we use for something that the majority of the people on the team would prefer. Anyway, the idea is the same. Simple list of tasks that you can mark by dates, and you can move from to do to in progress to done. Elizabeth, I know that you were very passionate about a different planning tool, and I wanted to ask you if you would like to share that tool with everybody.
I would love to, only I hadn't got it up on the screen. But a tool I am passionate
would you like me to Google it for you quickly so I can show an example and you can talk about it?
Yes, this is a simple Gantt chart.
Yes, I can do that. Okay. Just stop sharing it. You can start talking, and I'm going to find it and share it soon.
One of the planning, I mean, I like planning tools. I think they're absolutely fundamental to help us to cut down on the stress, to do things effectively, and to work together in teams. And all the things like the Trello boards and so on, I do believe they're the most sort of newer and sophisticated end that needs a little bit of training. I think there's the reason I like the Gantt chart is it's very simple, and at its simplest, you can look at the chart and get a sense of timing of when things happen. And the reason I feel so strongly about this is last 6 months, when we had the when we had the division contests mainly, and area contests, there was a lot of doing contests very late. I think if we took some time and we did the Gantt chart, you could actually see the overlaps of different divisions. You can see you've got contests, you've got club visits. You can actually see how to manage things, and that's why I would like to see. Not the Microsoft project one. That's that Gantt chart. The top one, Lucas, is a simple one. 1, 2, 3, the fourth to the right and the top line, that one, that's quite a nice simple one. I'm not looking for it to be super sophisticated, but you can see in the left-hand side, you have all your different tasks. So for example, a typical area director, division director could have the COT training, contests, club visits, and so on. And then you have your dates, and you can actually see some of them may overlap, but you've got a sense of how things are going to happen. If you only have this written in a document like your club success plan, which you hardly ever open, you don't get that visual sense of how to do things. So I like the tools that Lucas will use. Some of them we use at work, some of them we use, the Zoom team, for example, use a Trello board to plan Zoom events. But this one, I would like to see area directors, division directors, and club officers using the Gantt chart just to highlight what they're going to do. So that's my tool of preference for a very simple way of managing the different tasks for area directors and division directors. And Lucas, I saw that the clock was on red, and I think you're into question time. So had you finished your presentation? Are you ready for questions? I'm sure there must be loads of questions for you.
Absolutely. Just give me a second. I just wrap it up very quickly before we get to the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, get back to screen share and okay. So now question for everybody is this one. Coming back to our chat requests, please type in the chat if and which ones, if there are tools that we haven't covered that you do recommend. I'll give you 20 seconds for that, maybe. Please open the chat window. And if you already use Trello, if you already use Notion, type, you already like these, or if you use Gantt charts, if there's some other tools, feel free to type in the chat. It's both for us to get feedback, but also for your colleagues who might get inspiration to use a completely different tool. What other tools do you recommend? Paper and pen. There's nothing wrong with paper and pen. Great. Voila, completely agree. And also simple spreadsheet, right? Some people just like to have a list and simple Google Sheet. It might work as well. Gantt chart, Trello, Microsoft Project. Oh, we have a couple more Gantt charts fans. Excellent. All right, we got Excel. Thanks, Elizabeth, for adding that one. Okay, so a couple of examples. There's a couple of more tools, but I think we covered all the basic ones. So last question I want to ask you before we turn to the questions where you'll be asking, what issues can you face with using planning tools? Or have you ideally in the past, you are planning an event, you already had your tools set up. Were there any issues that you faced during the execution after you planned everything, but when you were executing and monitoring how things were going? Any issues that you faced? I'll give you a moment, let's say 20 seconds to think. Getting people to use the tools. Exactly. It's an evergreen. It's an evergreen. When I was starting out, I thought I will improve my persuasion skills, and very soon I'll be able to persuade every single person on the district team just, to use Trello the same way they're using hot water. But my experience, it never really happened. So I just accepted the fact that it's not everybody who's going to use it. And there are some people, for example, whom I will need to send a WhatsApp message or give them a call. How are you doing with this task? Oh, this is already finished. And I just move it in the tool for them. I just had to compromise this way. Lack of knowledge, always a challenge. No Wi-Fi. That's an interesting one, but very important to be aware of that. Too much time updating tools and not actually doing actions. This is true. This is true. I think sometimes we so much fall in love with planning that we lose focus on the things that actually need to take place. So it's really good to have that common sense and make sure that to keep, like Stephen Covey said, keep the main thing the main thing. And okay, so these were some of the key highlights, some of the key problems. Great. Now is a great time to change gears and switch to Q&A. I'm opening it up to questions, anything related to planning. If there's any broader topic that you would like to ask about, feel free to ask. And we have, I guess, at least 5 more minutes for questions. Elizabeth.
Yeah, okay, before I ask my question, I want to welcome our past district director who was with us. Thank you very much, PDD Gerard, for joining us this evening. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Lucas, what I would like your quick thoughts on are, we're asked to write a club success plan, an area success plan, a division success plan, and a district success plan, which is like a flat written document. But really, to make this worthwhile and actionable, you really need some sort of plan in a visual form. How would you take the words from that page and make it what I call a working plan? What tool, or how would you do that?
Over my long years in Toastmasters, I've been through a bunch of these plans, and I'll be very honest. It always is like at the beginning of the year. I mean, for the district plans, the trio meets in US or Canada or somewhere else, and everybody fills up all the details. But very often, that's the last time anybody ever sees the plan. I think that, no, I'm not saying always, okay, but this is my experience. Very often, this is what happens. What is important is more like to use this as a conversation and to put the things or identify the things that are truly important. Not too many things, but let's say this year we decide, okay, we really need to improve the number of members in every club as a district, and then create the list of actions that we need to take, and then put the actions into a tool that we're going to review at every team meeting. So if it's a district team, there needs to be part on the district team's agenda that is dedicated to reviewing the status of the tasks. The same for a club, for the club executive committee meeting. I believe that the only way how to make these tasks not forgotten is they need to be captured in a tool that most people have easy access to. And in literally every single club executive committee meeting, there needs to be dedicated agenda, at least 10, maybe 15 minutes, maybe more, where the group is everybody is going to have a look at everybody's tasks, and everybody will be able to say, this is going well, this is behind. And just by this way, we can create a habit that everybody says, okay, we're looking at it at every meeting, so I'd better complete this before the next meeting.